It's the end of the week, so it's time to show you how much I spent and where. I had a couple blips in the budget this week. I'll explain what happened and how I'm going to fill the hole coming up next. Welcome back to Ready Budget Go. My name is Drew, and on this channel we talk about cash budgeting, saving money, and achieving our financial goals. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please consider subscribing, hit the like button, and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Today, I'm going to go over my expenses for week 3 of my January budget. My weeks run from Friday through Thursday, and this is Thursday night when I'm recording this, so it's a great time to go over all the money that I spent in the week prior, where it went, and some surprises that came along. I've also got a couple of new trackers that I'm implementing for reasons that I'll explain a little bit later. But for now, let's go over what came in and what went out. In terms of income, none of this came in this week as expected, so I don't have anything to update here. In the bills, I have 2 that went out. I had my Affirm payment, which is for my cell phone. My company reimburses me for my cell phone for hardware and service every month, but I still am responsible for paying the actual bill. I financed it at 0% because I thought that was the best use of money. Finding a 0% interest rate is always a great deal. So instead of having to come up with that money up front, that money is in the bank earning interest, and I'm giving Affirm a little bit from what my company gives me every month to repay for the purchase of my cell phone. I also had prescriptions come out. Now, I'm going to record the amount in here, but I'm also going to have another prescriptions amount later in the month. And the reason is because my pharmacy switched me to a 90-day supply from a 30-day supply. I wasn't expecting that. So I had budgeted for a 30-day supply, and they gave me 90 days. So one of the prescriptions, instead of costing $25, came up at $75. I'm not out of it yet, so I told them to hold off on that for another couple of weeks until I figure out where I'm going to put this in my budget. Because I put it on a credit card, I could have easily just put it on there and then worried about it later, but I wanted to be more methodical than that. And since I had the extra medication, I just decided to defer it. So I'm going to write in here $121.24, so I'm going to round that up to 122. But this I will come back to when I go pick up that other prescription, probably this week. And I'll add in that other amount. I'll write this out. I'll write in the total amount for the month. The good news is that I won't have to worry about prescriptions unless I need a new one for another couple of months. But that also means that I need to be sure that I'm tracking it. So I've got another sheet that we'll fill in later for expenses that don't come in once a month, because essentially I'm no longer going to be able to rely on my monthly bills to plan for this expense. I now need to be looking at it on a quarterly basis. So that sheet is coming up in a little bit. None of the other expenses came out yet, so I'm good for this week. For wallet spend, we'll come back and fill that in after I go over all of the expenses for the week. Stockpiles, I did send $100 more to my emergency fund, and that was from game night on Monday. If you haven't watched it, this week's was mostly 2 different games, and I decided to limit how many times I play a given game each week, so expect more variety in the coming weeks. So I've still got one more game night left in January, and that'll be this coming Monday, and I hope that you'll come back and watch that. Savings and extra debt, I did not send this $1,000 to my savings account as I had planned, and I had a very specific reason for that. Part of it was because of the prescriptions, but I also want to wait until the bonus paycheck to do that instead of the mid-month paycheck. So I'm holding off on that for now, which is fine because we're still in the month. Okay, so now it's time to go over to the cash flow tracker. And I only have a couple of transactions here. This is like a check register for me, if you're old enough to remember what a check register is. This basically is following along with all of the money that came into and went out of my checking account each month to make sure that the balance at the start of the month and the balance at the end of the month match up with all the transactions that I've recorded. I've had twice now where I have forgotten to record something, or I recorded it and I didn't do it properly and I only caught it at the end of the month. So this is a really good tool to have, just to have the pen and paper method, make sure that you're watching what's going in and coming out. Also, it makes sure it forces you to look at your checking account balance, and if anything goes awry, whether it's, heaven forbid, fraud, or if it is a charge that comes in higher than you remember, or even a check that you forgot to write if you still that you forgot you had written if you still write checks. So it's good to have that kind of a double check on your checking account just to make sure that everything that's happening with your balance is what you expect. So I had two withdrawals this month. I had an ATM withdrawal, and that was for $60. That's for my weekly cash spending. I had $40 left over at the end of last week, so I took only 60 to bring me back up to 100. And then I had an emergency fund transfer, and this was from game night, and that was for $100. And that's all I have to record. I didn't have any inflows, and those were the only two withdrawals. So we'll move along to the expenses. Now, I had many more expenses than I've had so far this month. In fact, I think I'm going to at least double, if not a little more, the number of transactions. So we'll go over these real quick. On the 17th, I bought groceries, and that was at Safeway. Food, and that was $98.14. The same day, the 17th, the Friday, I got breakfast at McDonald's. Actually, this wasn't even breakfast, this was just coffee. So a lot of these McDonald's transactions are primarily coffee, $5.06. The 18th, I went to the post office, and I'm going to call this miscellaneous because this isn't a category that I can really attribute to regular monthly spend. Good friend of mine, I sent him a Christmas gift and it didn't fit. And it's one of those that it was an import, so returning it wasn't really cost effective. So I just bought him the gift again and sent it to him again. So, yes, expensive, but it really wasn't worth the hassle of returning it. And he couldn't wear what I'd sent him, so I got him a new one. And so the shipping was $16.85. And the reason why the gift doesn't show up here is because I took it out of my birthday money. So it was a net zero expense for me. So the 19th, oh, no, I had one more transaction on the 18th. I went to QFC, which is another supermarket, because I forgot to get some of the things that I needed for the week from the trip to Safeway. That was $25.49. And then on the 19th, I had a real caffeinated weekend here, McDonald's again. And that was for the princely sum of $6.04. And then on the 20th, the last time, that was the day I took off from work, and I went to McDonald's for lunch, and I spent $16.85 because McDonald's is expensive. Oh no, I'm sorry, that was $14.82. I put in the amount from the Postal Service again, so I will take care of that. I use a pen so that it's easier to see, but I do make mistakes. All right, $14.82. That's better. And then, let's see. On the 22nd, I got DoorDash. And this was at work. This is because I worked a very long day and I needed to get dinner before making my commute home. $19.96. And I think that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 transactions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. And then we've got the weekly cash spent, which I always put on the Thursday. And this week I had $25 left over, so I spent $75. So I'm going to total this up, and then we'll put that into the budget worksheet. So $98.14 plus $5.06 plus $16.85 plus $25.49 plus $6.04 plus $14.82 plus $19.96 plus $75. $261.36. So I will go over here and input that. $261.36. So here on this sheet, my income I round down a little bit. My bills I always round up to the next whole dollar, but everything else I put in down to the penny. So it's just how I've chosen to do it. Some people like everything being down to the penny. I prefer to round on these bills just because there's some variation, and it's a good way to build up my checking account buffer. So going back over here, I am just going to color code all of the transactions for this week. I think I'll do it in, let's see, maybe orange this week. No, maybe we'll do pink. Why not pink? We'll make it kind of spring themed because spring can't get here fast enough. I know most of us have been in a deep freeze. It's been chilly here in the Pacific Northwest, but certainly not as bad as some other parts of the country. So, okay. So that's all those transactions highlighted. And then the next thing we're going to do is move this to the side. I am going to go over to my savings tracker, which is a new, one of the new worksheets that I put in. And I am going to fill in what has gone into my emergency fund so far this year. So I have the tracker on the previous page, which is the graphical representation of my goal and how close I am to achieving it. But I also want to keep track of the interest earned and the deposits that I make. I'm tracking the withdrawals from my checking account, but I'm not tracking the deposits into my savings account. My savings account is at a different financial institution than my checking account. And the reason is because, frankly, the interest pays more. I've had my checking account since I was in high school, so it's been a few years. But my savings account I opened last year. My high yield savings account I opened last year. And so this year, I'm not going to worry about going back to last year and tracking it since the dawn of the account. But this year, I want to track all of the deposits into it and where I am, and then the interest earned. So we're going to say that this is the emergency fund, because that's all that's in the savings account right now. And the starting balance at the start of the year was $7,658.91. So I earn interest on the first of the month. So on 1/1/25, and I'm going to say this was interest, I earned $25.85. And so I'm going to keep a running balance here. So we'll say 7,658.91 plus 25.85 is $7,684.76. The next transaction was on the 6th, and I deposited $200, and that brought it to $7,884.76. So we'll just add 200. Now, I take 205 out of my checking account, but there's some arbitrage there where I keep the extra $5 in a separate fund, a separate account for a different purpose. So that is just something that I've separated, but into the actual emergency fund goes the $200. So then on the 9th, I deposited $250, and this was a combination of letterbucks and twice monthly contribution and a couple other things. So that was $250, and that brought the balance to $134.76. On the 17th, I deposited $558. And again, from a combination of sources, the weekly game night, there was possibly Etsy earnings. It could have been any number of things. So I'm not all that specific on the source, but I am just tracking the transactions here. So 558, and that brought us to $8,692.76. And then the last one was just today, where I transferred in the money from this week's game night, which was $100. And so that brings us to $8,792.76. So there will be more coming. I've got another game night this coming Monday, and then at the end of the month, there may be another transfer in there, but I'm just going to keep going with this through February. Well, sorry, through the end of 2025, or at least until the emergency fund is fully funded. Then I'll only be tracking it for interest. Once that emergency fund is fully funded at about $12,000, I'm going to start on the next goal, which is the rainy day fund. And I'll print out a new sheet for that, because I will partition that within my savings account at Wealthfront to say, okay, this is the emergency fund, this is the rainy day fund, and then I've got a couple of other goals that I'm working on as well, or will be, because I'm doing one at a time. And I've got other videos talking about that. And so if you want to see my goals for 2025, there's a video on my channel. I will try to remember to link it directly down below, but if you look through the playlists or the past videos, you should be able to find it. And then the other sheet that I want to fill in is the periodic non-monthly recurring expense planner. Here we go. So this is for 2025. And we are saying this is January, April, July, and October. And this is for prescriptions. And the amount is going to be approximately, because I had some other prescriptions mixed in with these. So I'm going to say that the amount is going to be approximately $150, because I was budgeting $50 a month. So 3 months should be about $150, and this is quarterly. So this tracker is handy if you have expenses that come out that are not monthly. They could be annually, they could be semi-annually, which means twice a year, quarterly, 4 times a year, bi-monthly, every other month, other, which could be once every 4 months, once every 5 months, whatever the case may be, or irregular, meaning that you don't know when they're going to come in. They just come in periodically, but you want to make sure that every month, as you're doing your budget, you look through this sheet and you see, okay, are any of the ones that I've checked as being an irregular expense going to hit this coming month? Maybe your child is in sports that start in February and let's say November. So you've got it twice per year, but it's not every 6 months. So something like that. So this is a companion to the other sheet that I use, which is my, let me pull it up here, yearly subscription tracker. So this is annual expenses only and what month they're in. So here next month in March, I got to remember that one of my credit card annual fees is coming out. Now, $550 for a credit card annual fee is an indulgence. However, I just want to point out that I get way more value out of using the card than the $550 costs me. It gets me discounts on groceries. It gets me discounts on Lyft, which I use periodically quite a bit because I don't drive. It gets me all kinds of other travel benefits, a $300 travel credit every year. So it really is a value for me. It may not be for everybody, and certainly if I were in credit card debt, I wouldn't have that card. I would have a different card, ideally a 0% interest rate, and I would be focused on paying those balances down. But because I don't carry any credit card debt, I now use credit cards to my advantage. So this tracker, along with the non-monthly recurring expense tracker, the savings tracker, all of the other worksheets that I've used in this week's video and every video are available in my Etsy shop, and I will have a link to that down in the descriptions below. So I'll be right back to wrap everything up, and we'll put a bow on the week. When all is said and done, it wasn't too bad of a week. I really wish my pharmacy had told me up front that they were switching to a 90-day fill, but I'll make accommodations in my budget. because budgets have to be flexible in order to work. I've seen a lot of people give up because of an emergency or an unexpected expense. I've had at least one of those every single month since I've started sharing all of my numbers on YouTube. And I have to believe that that trend will continue. Not every single month, but things will continue to come up because that's life. And I'm still here, still trying, still adjusting, and still showing you all the numbers, even when they aren't pretty. And I'm so glad that you've decided to join me here on YouTube today and every day. And I am especially grateful for you watching to the end of the video. That really does mean a lot to me. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new, leave me a comment down below, and share with your friends. I'll be back on Monday for game night, and I might have one other video coming up this week, kind of about my story with money, all my history of, why I budget, and my life story with how it relates to money, because I think that really informs who I am today as far as why I'm on this kind of kick of budgeting and how it has affected my life and how it has affected my view of money as an adult. So look for that possibly this weekend, maybe sometime next week. And until I see you in the next one, take care.